Dear colleagues, good afternoon. Thank you very much for being here. My name is Mykola Movchan. I'm Deputy Permanent Delegate of Ukraine to UNESCO, and today I have the honor to be moderator of our today's very important event. I would like to thank all our partners being here and to say that this event is being organized by the Crimean Institute for Strategic Studies in cooperation with our permanent delegation of Ukraine to UNESCO, with Center of Spatial Technology and with Ministry of Culture and Strategic Communications. And our today's event is dedicated to the Day of Resistance against the Russian temporary occupation of the Autonomous Republic of Crimea and the city of Sevastopol. Today is 26th of February, and today is the Day of Resistance, of our resistance against the Russian occupation of Ukrainian Crimea and Ukrainian city of Sevastopol. The topic of our today discussion, of our panel discussion, of our conference is research on the consequences of violations in the field of cultural heritage protection, the ancient city of Chersonese and its Chora. We have today the panelists, and I'm happy to welcome here Deputy Minister of Culture and Strategic Communications of Ukraine, Mr. Belyaev. Happy to welcome here the Mrs. Elmira Abdyalimova, expert in cultural and heritage studies from the Crimean Institute for Strategic Studies, and Mr. Denis Yashny, having PhD in history, leading researcher and the Kiev-Pecherovsk National Reserve, head of the monitoring group, Crimean Institute for Strategic Studies. And would like to welcome Ms. Alexandra Zakrevska from the Center of Spatial Technology, NGO. Dear colleagues, this topic is extremely important. You know that the topic of our discussion, you know that UNESCO is conducting a monitoring of the situation in the temporarily occupied by Russia, Autonomous Republic of Crimea and city of Sevastopol, and every year in the fall, in autumn, the UNESCO presents the report by the Director General of the organization, Director General of UNESCO, on this situation in temporarily occupied by Russia, Autonomous Republic of Crimea, Ukraine. Before giving the floor to the Deputy Minister of Culture and Strategic Communications, I would like to draw your attention to make a statement on behalf of our delegation. You know that, unfortunately, tragically, that Russia continues to attack civilians in Ukraine, and you know that the Russian forces launched a drone attack on the Kiev region yesterday in the night, and as a consequence of this attack, 2 people were killed and 2 injured. And among people killed, well-known Ukrainian journalist from Ukrinform, Tatiana Kulik, and her husband, a very famous surgeon oncologist, Pavlo Ivanchov, and they were killed in their residence. Tatiana Kulik was a member of the National Union of Journalists of Ukraine. She also worked as the editor-in-chief of public affairs programs and as presenter of the Central Channel, the World Service of Radio Broadcasting of Ukraine, as a TV presenter at the public broadcasting. The Ukrainian journalist community lost its good colleague and a famous journalist. The tragic death of Mr. Ivanchov is a big loss for the Ukrainian medical science and patients as well. We strongly condemn horrible war crimes and atrocities committed by Russia. During the Russian war against our country, Ukrainian media, cultural, education, and science communities suffered heavy losses. We call upon UNESCO to strengthen its efforts to protect the areas of UNESCO mandate in Ukraine and to respond to these war crimes committed by Russia. Thank you very much for your attention, and let me pass the floor to Deputy Minister of Culture and Strategic Communications, Mr. Belyaev. To your floor, sir.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, dear participants and partners of this project. In accordance with the Article 51 of the law of Ukraine on ensuring the rights and freedoms of citizens in the temporarily occupied territories of Ukraine, the responsibility for the protection of cultural heritage in the temporary occupied territories lays on the Russian Federation as an occupying power in accordance with the norms and the principles of international law. According to the State Statistics Service of Ukraine, in 2013, there was 35 museums in the territory of Autonomous Republic of Crimea, and 5 of them are on Sevastopol. As we will speak today about the territory, one of them is the territory of which is especially of this research and the ancient city of Chersonese and its Chora. After the illegal annexion of Crimea in 2014, Minister of Culture of Ukraine did not issue any permits for archaeological research in the territory of Crimea. Thus, any archaeological research on the territory for any innovations or new construction is prohibited, illegal, and contrary to the current legislation of Ukraine. But despite this, open sources and also your research contain information about numerous of excavations at the archaeological sites and numerous number of new constructions and destroying of architectural and archaeological zones. I hope your project will allow for effective legal procedures to compensate for damage and losses made by Russian invasion to Ukraine, Ukrainian cultural heritage. I wish your project long live, and so I'm glad and happy to participate. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Belyaev, Deputy Minister, and for your detailed presentation and intervention. And now let me pass the floor to Ms. Elmira Ablalimova, expert in cultural and heritage studies, Crimean Institute for Strategic Studies. Ms. Ablalimova will make a presentation on the topic Threats to the Preservation of Cultural Heritage Under Occupation 2014-2025. Ms. Ablalimova, to the floor, please.
Many thanks, Mr. Mikola, for the introduction of our team. Honorable colleagues, we are online today, and to begin with, I'd like to send our warm greetings from faithful, strong, and hopeful Kiev. And I'd like to thank for everyone who took the time to join us and for your involvement. Also, I'd like to thank the Permanent Mission of Ukraine to UNESCO and the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, and of course, the Minister of Culture and Strategic Communications of Ukraine for support our event. The purpose of our today's meeting is not only to provide information about the current situation at the UNESCO World Heritage Site, located on the temporarily occupied territory, but also to demonstrate the possibilities of remote monitoring in observing the state of cultural heritage protection at sites that cannot be accessed. Therefore, our team decided to divide our presentation into 3 parts. First, I will tell you a little bit about the general information about our research, about the threats to the preservation of the complex site, the ancient city of Tauric Chersonese. Then, my colleague Denis Yashny would like to draw your attention to the interference of the Russian Orthodox Church in the management of the archaeological site and the threats from this interference to conservation and scientific research. Next, we will focus on how spatial technologies help us to visualize our work. And finally, we will demonstrate the models created as a part of this project and give you links where you can find more detailed information. Okay. This study, the next slide, please, Alexandra. This study was prepared as the joint initiative of the Crimean Institute for Strategic Studies and the Center for Spatial Technologies with the support of the International Renaissance Foundation. Crimean Institute for Strategic Studies, the next slide, please, Alexandra, specializes on the issue of documentation of violations of international humanitarian law and international human rights law in sphere of cultural heritage protection according to 1954 Convention for the Protection of Cultural Property in the event of armed conflict and its two protocols. The methodology of remote monitoring of the state of protection of cultural heritage sites developed by us allows to collect data on the territories of Ukraine temporarily occupied by the Russian Federation, namely in the Autonomous Republic of Crimea and the city of Sevastopol, 13 districts of Kherson, Zaporizhzhia, Donetsk and Luhansk regions. You can see on the slide the map of Ukraine, and this red zone, the area of our research studies. Our collaboration with the Center of Spatial Technologies made it possible to visualize objects lost as a result of illegal archaeological works, estimate the total area and volume of excavations, and determine the degree of impact of new construction on the historical landscape. Very important clarification, we based only on the open evidence, I mean Russian state media, scientific publications, conference materials, maps, and satellite images. Also, today you can all be the first to see the two models that were created in this cooperation. The first model, a photogrammetric model of the ancient city of Tauric Chersonese, and the second one is a model reconstruction of a separate object, the ancient columbarium on the territory of necropolis. Now I'd like to introduce my colleagues. The next slide, please. As Mr. Mykola mentioned above, my name is Elmira Ablimova. I'm an expert in cultural and heritage studies and the project manager of Crimean Institute for Strategic Studies. Denis Yashny, my colleague, he's PhD in history, leading researcher at the National Preserve Kiev-Pechersk Lavra, and head of the monitoring group of Crimean Institute for Strategic Studies. And our partner, the Center for Spatial Technologies and its representatives, Alexandra Zakrevska and Andrei Onishchenko, they are here today with us. Please, Alexandra and Andrei, wave your hand to be seen. And I should also mention the few colleagues who played an important role in this project, but for some reason were unable to take part in today's event, but their contribution to this work is invaluable. There are Olena Klenina, Doctor of Letters, PhD in Archaeology, a professor of Adam Mickiewicz University in Poznan, Poland, and our partners, the Center for Spatial Technologies and its representatives, Maxim Rokhmanika and Mykola Holovko. I would not, the next slide, please. I would not like to waste time explaining that Tauric Chersonese is a valuable historical and archaeological site. I'm absolutely sure you're aware about it, but I would just like to emphasize some very important, in my humble opinion, points from the Ukrainian perspective. The first one, Chersonese is one of the largest ancient centers in the northern Black Sea region and is also a cornerstone of Crimean history. Second, Chersonese is a case of the great creative potential of the autochthonous people and evidence of their ability to borrow the best from other peoples without losing their own flavor. Third, the remarkable and at the same time the complex history of the ancient city is lost in the classical sense. Time has deprived us of its chronicles. Therefore, It is the archaeological research of Chersonese that is the only complete source for studying its historical past. And last one, a significant part of the suburban area and the nearby agricultural district, which are of exceptional scientific interest, are located outside the territories of sites of national and local importance, outside their protection zones, outside the UNESCO site and its buffer zones, and unfortunately are blocked by the continuous urban development of the Gagarinsky district of Sevastopol, of city of Sevastopol. I'd like to move to the threats to the preservation of this archaeological site during occupation from 2014 to 2025. You can see the four main violations: appropriation of cultural institution and cultural property and cultural heritage, illegal archaeological excavations, project for the economic development of the territory of Tauric Chersonese, and the so-called rescue restoration projects, and illicit removal of cultural property, but to the Tauric Chersonese National Preserve from other occupied territories of Ukraine. The next slide, please. Appropriation. You can see the timeline of actions of Russian authorities and their proxies to all violations, and you can see the long time from 2014 to 2024. But the appropriation of archaeological site of ancient city in Tauric Chersonese finally was finished in 2016. The Ministry of Culture of the Russian Federation included the complex site, the ancient city of Tauric Chersonese, in the Unified State Register of Cultural Heritage Site of the People of the Russian Federation under the title The Ancient City of Tauric Chersonese. We have a registration number of this, and it is too important. But the process of appropriation, the museum items that are the part of Ukrainian Museum Foundation, is continuing now. And we have been recording a process of including these museum items to the State Register of Museum Foundation of Russian Federation, these museum items to this register. The next slide, please. The illegal archaeological excavations starting in 2015 and until 2025, our monitoring group recorded many illegal archaeological excavations on the territory of ancient city. The greatest losses of the archaeological heritage of Chersonese were caused by illegal excavation for the demolition of its necropolis in 2020 to 2024, when Russian archaeologists were tasked with clearing the site for the construction of an entertainment complex called New Chersonese. During the period from 2021 to 2024, according to the Occupation Administration, 85,000 square meters of the cultural layer were destroyed. About 4 million objects and more than 1,500 archaeological complexes were seized. The next violation is a project of the economic development of the territory of Tauric Chersonese and so-called rescue restoration projects. One example is the Opera in Chersonese project. Within its framework, a stage and an open auditorium are set up every summer on the territory of Citadel and the port quarter, and theatrical lighting and sound equipment are installed. Such structures are gigantic, not only in comparison to the ancient and medieval ruins of city estates and defensive walls, but also in comparison to the monumental St. Volodymyr's Cathedral, which looks like a small toy when compared to them. In 2018, the western defense wall in the citadel was restored in a short time, and this short time of restoration and excessive haste of the work and its localized character raise reasonable doubts about the compliance of such restoration measures with scientific standards and their ability to eliminate their threats to the preservation of archaeological sites during the festival. Not only does this decision contradict international standards for the protection of cultural heritage, but it also poses significant risks to the preservation of the site, the cultural and historical landscape, its authenticity, and the archaeological environment. The next violation, the next slide, please. Its illicit removal of cultural property to the Tauric Chersonese National Preserve. In February 2023, the Kamyana Mohyla National Preserve, located in the Russian-occupied part of the Zaporizhzhia region, was illegally added to the so-called Tauric Chersonese State Historical and Archaeological Museum Preserve as its branch. The occupation authorities moved exhibits to Tauric Chersonese, and in May, an exhibition with 120 artifacts opened there, including petroglyphs, household items, pottery, and Stone Age tools. The next slide, please. In September, a second exhibition entitled The House of Fish on the Sacred Mountain of Kamyana Mohyla was presented. The actions of the occupation administration indicate the systematic transfer and use of cultural property from the occupied territories, which is contrary to international humanitarian law, in particular the provisions of the Convention for the Protection of Cultural Property in the Event of Armed Conflict of 1954 and its protocols. Such actions can be qualified as illicit removal of cultural property and perceived as violations of the right of the population of the occupied territories to preserve and access their often cultural heritage. That brings me to the end of my presentation. Once again, thank you for your attention. With your permission, I would like to turn the floor over to my colleague, Denis Yashny, who will present the next report. Thank you.
Thank you, Elmira.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Dear colleagues, participants, and guests of our event, I would like to express my gratitude for your attention to the Ukrainian cultural heritage during the war. I would like to present to you the results of our analysis of the threats to the UNESCO, the site, the ancient city of Tauric Chersonese, and its Chora, from both the Russian Orthodox Church and Russian foundations affiliated with the Russian authorities. I would like to express my gratitude to our colleagues, archaeologists, who carried out a significant part of the interpretive research. We observe active interference of the part of the Russian Orthodox Church in the activities of the preserve, which is aimed at seizing its territory. The first attempt was made in 2015, when the governor of Sevastopol, appointed by the occupation authorities Sergei Minyailo, appointed Archpriest Sergei Haluta as director of the occupation administration. This immediately created a threat to the authenticity of the monuments, as the church administration prioritizes the religion's explanation of the territory over its comprehensive scientific protection. The second attempt, next slide please. The second attempt was made on February 15, 2024, when Metropolitan Tikhon Shevkunov of Crimea of the Russian Orthodox Church proclaimed during a service of the territory of the Cultural Heritage Site, the Basilica of 1934 Synagogue, the creation of a monastery within the territory of 1923. Next slide, please. And the next slide, please. And someone. Yeah. Already on March 12, 2024, this decision was approved by the Synod of the Russian Orthodox Church, and Metropolitan Tikhon was appointed abbot of the monastery. The next slide, please. Not only does these decisions contradict international standards for the protection of cultural heritage of the site, the cultural and historical landscape, its authenticity and the archaeological environment. Moreover, it is part of a much broader policy, the destruction of the historical and cultural ties of the occupied territory with its rightful owner, Ukraine. According to Metropolitan Tikhon of Simferopol and Crimea of the Russian Orthodox Church on February 15, 2024, the territory transferred to the monastery will be separated from the rest of Chersonese by a fence. As early as November 2024, the occupation authorities of the Chersonese preserve initiated an examination of the project for its construction. The media in Sevastopol also draw attention to the obviousness of introducing significant restrictions within the territory of the monastery. First of all, this will concern scientific excavation, which will obviously be carried out in a reduced format, as the main goal will be to legalize the release of the territory necessary for the monastery, which will lead to the complete destruction of cultural layers and archaeological sites. Next slide, please. Another restriction of access to the part of the hill fort that will become the property of the monastery. Some parts of Chersonese may become completely closed to the public with access only for members of the monastic community. The Metropolitan explicitly pointed to this in his public statement. Such change will greatly complicate the study, protection, and preservation of the archaeological heritage of Kherson. The next slide, please. Threats from the economic and construction activities. Stop, please. Stop. Thank you. Threats for the economic and construction activities of the monastery. The analysis of the observed activities of the Russian Orthodox Church in Crimea over the past 10 years demonstrate a high probability of vigorous construction activities of the monastery, both through the construction of new capital structures within archaeological quarters of the site and the reconstruction of existing facilities, in particular those of religious significance, namely churches, chapels, basilicas, and medieval monasteries. The laying of utility lines of the territory of the hill fort will also lead irreversible losses for the site. The consequence of such process will be not only destruction of the archaeological heritage, but also the elimination of authenticity of historical objects. It should be noted that ancient buildings and monuments belonging of the religious tradition may be at risk of destruction, since their preservation will not be in line with the new concern of development of the territory. Such of approach could lead to a distortion of the historical context of Chersonese and the destruction of its multi-layered cultural landscape. Thus, the construction and economic activities of the monastery poses potential risks for the preservation of the historical, cultural, and scientific component of the heritage of Chersonese. The next slide, please. The extent of the threats described above is confirmed by the damage to certain intercomplex facilities recorded as of November 2024, which was also caused by the activities of the monastery, and particularly the following objects were destroyed. Next slide, please. The next slide, please. Thank you. The defense walls along with the South Gate and Protechisma. The necropolis of Tauric Chersonese, part of the territory included in the Lord ancient city of Tauric Chersonese. The next slide, please. The Agora and Quarter 4015 with the early Christian Basilica number 17. Quarter 7 with Byzantium baths and a water catchment cistern prison of the 9th and 11th centuries. Early Christian basilicas number 28 of the 6th, 7th centuries and number 29 near St. Volodymyr's Cathedral and quarter 72. The next slide, please. Now I would like to present to you the results of our study of destructive excavation. The Crimean Institute of Strategic Study, which monitors the state of protection of cultural heritage sites in the temporarily occupied Crimea using remote monitoring tools, has recorded more than 85 cases of illegal archaeological research conducted by Russian archaeologists in the agricultural part of Chersonese and on the territory of the settlement itself. 34 of them were carried out directly on the territory or in the buffer zone of the components of the World Heritage Site, the ancient city of Tauric Chersonese and its Chora. In our research, we focused on the reconstruction of violations against cultural property at 3 locations. Locations number 1, Chersonese necropolis, partly included in the UNESCO site and partially located in its buffer zone. Location number 2, the South Gate, the street and quarters 71, 72 beyond it, the 45th quarter with the Agora and Basilica number 70 located entirely within the UNESCO site. Location number 3, quarter 7, 11, 11A in the central part of the city located entirely of the territory of the UNESCO site. I will focus on the first location in my presentation. The first location, the Roman road was found to be almost 80 meters long with average width of 3.7 meters, ranging from the 3.5 meters, it's equivalent to 12 Roman feet, to 4.15 meters, it's equivalent to 14 Roman feet, and consists of 2 parts, separated by a turn of almost 19 degrees counterclockwise. The first part was located at the bottom of the Chersonese galley and had a reconstructed ledge of 16 meters. The second part of the road was recorded on the southeastern slope of the Chersonese galley and was 65.4 meters long. From the technological standpoint, the road was typical for the 2 sites with minor differences due to different construction periods. It was a trench in the cultural layer at least 1.5 meters deep. The next slide, please. The sides of the trench were lined with large, slightly polished stones, and the space between trench site was filled with medium and large broken stones using architectural details. The next slide, please. This road embankment was constructed with a lime clay binder mortar. The part of the road of the southeastern slope of the Kherson Galley is preserved better almost completely. Only the roadway slabs were missing. A drainage ditch can be traced in this spot. It dates back the period from the 4th century BC to 11th century AD. Direct analogies for the ancient road of the Chersonese necropolis can be found of the western necropolis of the ancient city of Assos, Republic of Turkey, and necropolis of Athens. Similarly, ancient road in terms of construction technology are now in Crimea above the village of Skela in the Baidar Valley and the Violent Massif between Bezimiany and Lermontov Caves. The oldest construction horizon includes well-crafted rusticate blocks of the roadway lining near funerary structure with a sarcophagus, the heron object of the late 4th century BC. Apparently, this is the oldest part of the ancient road. Here it was laid along the Tauric, the line of the lowest point of the bottom of the galley, of the Chersonese galley, and before the defensive walls, it probably turned northwest. Climbing the slope to the Hellenistic gates of the Chersonese, dating from the 4th century BC. And the end of the first and beginning of the 2nd century, the road route was changed. From then on, to access the necropolis, it was necessary to cross the Newly. The next slide, please. Erected parables, the space between the line and inner and outer defensive walls, with the protechisma, the outer defensive walls, and exit through the gate in the protechisma located near Zenos Tower. During this period, new road surface were formed over the Hellenistic burial complex with the sarcophagus. Despite the published similar archaeological sites identify as roads located very close, 100 meters from the territory of citadel, excavations by Borisova and in front of the western gate of the city. Continuation in the Tauric of the galley was not recorded in any way. The object was categorized as a defensive wall. 3 dating options were proposed for it: 5th, 6th centuries, late 10th centuries, early 11th centuries. The explanation for the complex chronology of the site and several construction horizon is to be found in the complex geological, weak underlying soils in the form of clay, silt, and waterlogged garbage fields, hydrological high groundwater table, and seismic over the seismic fault of the Chersonese galley conditions of the site. All of these natural factors combine to cause the road to wear out and require constant repairs. Obviously, this complex stratigraphic situation was not taken into account or recorded by the authors of the illegal excavations. The ancient road was completely dismantled during the illegal excavations. In its place, a 3-story monumental concert building, the Museum of Antiquity and Byzantium, was erected. The next slide, please. Object number 2. To first location. On first location, the burial complex in the Roman section of necropolis. The monument was located on the northwestern slope of the Chersonese galley and was built on the foundation of a Hellenistic structure stretched along the slope. According to the data obtained during the illegal excavation, it dates back to the period from the turn of the 1st, 2nd to 5th centuries. The funerary complex of the Roman section of the necropolis was united chronologically, planographically, and topographically. A road ran along its front northwest facade, preserving its direction ever since the Hellenistic times. The general direction of the road was from the Hellenistic gate and further along the slope. After the gate was moved and the protechisma was built, this road was not abandoned at the necropolis section with the acquired the features of the privileged one. The first object, the next slide, please. The first object located along the road was a funerary structure with an exedra. It was a family tomb with a slab graves in which was laid urns with ashes and graves with bones stretched out position were found. The names Dioscorus and Nardion were discovered on 2 lead urns. Stone benches were installed over the grave in the exedra for memorial treason. The next object was a platform with the stairs paved with stone slabs. Thank you. It formed a crossroads. A lane began from it, which departed from the longitudinal road on a slope and went down into a galley to the ancient road described above. A large burial complex was located immediately further on. Its centerpiece was a well-preserved monumental columbarium. The next slide, please. Which mostly, thank you. Thank you. With mostly unlooted burials. The street continued along the necropolis, bounded by small stone fence. The last object in the complex is a title tomb with the stylobate. In the 6th object, please. Next. No. 6 objects. Thank you. Dated from the late 1st or early 2nd centuries AD. Inside by tomb, 5 levels of burials were recorded. Urns with edges from cremations and skeletons from the inhumations. The burial complex in the Roman sections of the necropolis functioned until the late Roman period. At the end of its existence, the exedra and columbarium were damaged. The facade facing the bottom of the galley fell out. After that, the entire complex was covered with leveling embankment. During the leveling, Aristone's tombstone was not dismantled or covered. Also, this was done and not still. The monument stood above the surface for a certain period over time under the influence of gravity and the general movement of the soil, probably in the 4th and 5th centuries. Aristotle still began to break and shift until it finally collapsed. The funerary complex in the Roman section of the necropolis was illegal excavated in 2024-2023, partially dismantled and moved to a new location for museum display. It is fair to argue that there has been a serious methodological error in the organization of archaeological research and museification of the site. On the site, it has to reach decisions of the relocations, restoration, and dismantling of individual parts of the burial complex in the Roman section of the necropolis without prior full discovery of the site. This made it impossible for the organizers of illegal excavation and representatives of the occupation administration to provide a proper professional assessment of the scientific and cultural significance, level of preservation, and unique value, which in turn rendered it impossible to determine reasonable goals and objectives for its museification. The columbarium was moved in 2022. The exedra was discovered and moved in 2023. The slab tomb with a stylobate, object number 6, was damaged during illegal excavation in 2022. The reasons for its methodological error should be viewed through the lens of the purpose of the illegal excavations themselves. Their goal was not to preserve cultural heritage sites, but not quickly vacate the construction site in accordance with engineering and construction needs. As a result, even when museified and preserved is a new location, some objects of the funerary complex in the Roman section of the necropolis lost their authenticity, structural integrity, and connection with the historical landscape of the necropolis of Tauric Chersonese and the ancient hill fort as a whole. Also, in 2024, the Protechisma and the South Gate were severely damaged along with the ancient buildings in the area of the ancient theater. They were partially dismantled during the laying of the communication for gas, water, and heating supply for the monastery facilities in the territory of Chersonese hill fort. The ancient hill fort lost its panorama after construction of the three-story monumental construct building of the Museum and Antiquity and Byzantium. As a result of the works of the territory of the necropolis of Tauric Chersonese and the creation of the buffer zone in the UNESCO site from 2021 to 2024, the historical landscape was completely destroyed. The landscape formed objects of the territory of Chersonese, which were interconnected with the necropolis and also formed its historical topography, were either partially dismantled and lost their original integrity or lost their panoramic view against the background of new monumental buildings. Thus, the historical landscape of the site, ancient city of Chersonese at its Chora, the area of the Chersonese Gully has been completely lost. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yashny, for your very detailed and very interesting presentations. We see how many and how numerous Russian crimes in Crimea they are, and how many crimes they committed against Chersonese Tauric. And now let me pass the floor to Ms. Alexandra Zagrevska, Center of Spatial Technology. Alexandra, to you the floor, please.
1, 2, 1, 2. My microphone is working.
Perfect.
Okay, yeah, thank you, dear colleagues, and thank you everyone for joining us today. My name is Alexandra Zakrevska. I'm one of the researchers of the Center for Spatial Technologies, and on behalf of our team, I wanted to present you our research methodology, the remote monitoring. As part of our analysis, we identified the K excavation sites and created an archive of media evidences related to each location. Second. Yeah, our archive includes satellite images, videos, and photographs from open source materials, such as Telegram channels, Kontakte, the Russian equivalent of Facebook, Russian propagandistic media, and television, as well as materials provided by our colleagues from Crimean Institute. Yeah, so based on this data, we created a few maps with recorded violations in the occupation period, which was presented by our colleague Denis Yashny in the beginning of his speech. We also created a chronology of excavations and constructions on the sites using satellite images and combination of open source materials and also 3D models. As Mir also mentioned, the first model is the one of Tauric Chersonese, the UNESCO protected site and its buffer zones with necropolis, and the second one, Temenos, and the burial complex, the necropolis buffer zone, which was a military base for decades, way back to the Soviet Union. Yes, our team also created this unique tool, which you can see on your screen right now. For it's a tool for like sorting open source materials. It's our internal product of CST. It's not yet available for everyone. This product allows us to like adjust specific parameters in the video and identify objects and locations and make recordings of the evidences and crimes. So yeah, another method of our investigation through visual materials, it's automation. So yeah, as you can see, it's a the process where you align the photo to the 3D model, which allows you to identify and verify the excavations and objects on the sites. So on this first photo on the right, it's the photo from 2015. On the right side, we can still see the Russian military base. Here already excavation started, and yes, still the remains of one building on the military base. On the right side, behind the Xenon Tower, we can also see this entertainment object on the ancient remains, which was built during the occupation of Russian Federation. This is not sure, I think it's the 2022 continuation of the excavations. Here you can see already on this photo match that the construction work started on the site. And here is like almost all, half of the buildings ready. And here, as we can see, almost the final touch of the construction. Yeah, so this is part of the second model. We created that to dive deeper in our case. So it's zoom in model of the burial complex, Temenos, which shows us the newly discovered layers of necropolis, the Roman period burial complex, and its elements, which, as I mentioned before, was impossible to discover due to the placement of the military base. And so using of all this data, we established a fairly clear timeline of all these events, including the start of excavation, their progress, the construction works, and so on. With the help of this 3D model, with all these tools, with photo matching, we can zoom deeper into the illegal archaeological process, studying the UNESCO protected zone, its buffer zones that are currently inaccessible due to the Russian occupation. Thank you. Here you can also see, have the QR code for the publication from the site of CISS. And we also will provide you the links in the chat, the group chat, and the QR codes for the 3D models. One on the first one, which I showed, the ancient city of Chersonese, and the burial complex.
Thank you very much, Ms. Zagrevska, for a very detailed and very interesting presentation. Now we're smoothly going to our next stage. Is the questions and answers and discussion. We have here now at our online conference representatives of the many delegations accredited to UNESCO and also the representatives of the Secretariat. So I would like to ask our colleagues from delegations, from the ministries of foreign affairs of our partner countries and from Secretariat of UNESCO to ask the question, to ask the questions our panelists. Who would like to ask? Please raise your hand.
Mr. Mikola, can I add something very important?
Yes, of
in
course,
my humble
of course.
opinion? Dear colleagues, Alexandra, could you return our previous slide with red blocks, with the map of Peninsula? Yeah, this one. I'd like to draw your attention on this. No, this the previous one. In the beginning. Mm-hmm. Oh, yes, this one. Mm-hmm. This one. Dear colleagues, no, the previous one with lotus red. Yes, thank you. Dear colleagues, the Crimean Institute for Strategic Studies, we have been recorded more than 85 cases of illegal archaeological excavations. And these small red blocks, these are our cases. and 34 of them are carried out directly on the territory of in the buffer zone of the Company of World Heritage Site of ancient city of Tauric Chersonese and its Chora. And we focus in our research on 3 locations that located in the buffer zone or very close to the UNESCO protection zone of archaeological this site. Denise today told you about first location and 2 objects. In our research, and I kindly ask Ola to send the link to our research to the chat, and you can find it in your chat. You find 2 additional locations with other objects that we have been recorded some different kind of violations related with interference of Russian Orthodox Church in the activity of National Preserve of Tauric Chersonese. And I kindly ask our team to put, okay, in our chat you can find the links of our models. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Abralimova. I would like just to add that all the presentations were so important, and thank you for the cooperation with us in the framework of the Convention 54. You know very well about the initiative of Ukraine on in the framework of that convention concerning the enhanced protection. And of course, our position that all the crimes against the cultural heritage committed by Russians in our Crimea and in other parts of our country, they are the crimes. They are war crimes. They're war crimes, and Russia must be brought to the international justice. And it's our main point to bring Russia to international justice. And that's why your work and work of your colleagues is extremely important for this goal, for this objective. Colleagues, please, what kind of questions you may ask to our panelists? So no questions. That's why, if with your permission, I will put a question. And for us, it's thanking you for this cooperation. Tell please what kind of events you plan for this year on cultural heritage, your Crimean Institute of Strategic Studies, because we would like, as permanent delegation, to participate, and also to invite other partners. And maybe other like foreign speakers to participate in these events. And we're also preparing this year for the session of the World Heritage Committee. You know, as you know, it will be held in Bulgaria in July this year, and also for the session of the Second Protocol Committee, which will be held in December this year as well. Yes, please.
Mr. Mikola, it's about our future events, yeah? If I correct, clear?
About your future events, yeah.
Okay, yes. Now we are planning this presentation in Ukraine. It will be in March this year. And then we are preparing to the training for our prosecutor office related with cultural heritage and how to make investigation in this sphere. And this, I hope that this study and these tools that we develop with our partner, the Center of Spatial Technology, will help our prosecutors in their work. It's maybe main activities that we are planning in this year.
Thanks a lot. And from our side, I would like to add that and ask for like the permission that all these presentations which were presented today, and they are extremely important, to send to the Secretariat of UNESCO, to PAX and to cultural sector, because this year Director General of UNESCO will draft the report on the monitoring in Crimea, and this report, as every year, will be presented at the 222nd session of the Executive Board of UNESCO in October this year. That's why, with your permission, we'll gather all this information, and the preserving the copyrights will send to the UNESCO Secretariat, because this all information is very valuable. So if there are no other questions, I see here the question from our colleague.
Yeah, like it's
Yes.
about satellite images.
It's maybe to you, Alexander, question, right?
Yeah,
Our colleague asking about wondering what satellite image resolution was used to access the site.
So until 2000, I think July 2022, it's a high resolution images which we took from Google Earth, and another two which was from 2023 and 2024. Unfortunately, the Google Earth already is not providing any pictures, any satellite pictures from this period, but our colleagues from Crimean Institute found us the right 300 dpi resolution one. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you for the question, for the reply. And would like also to add that the topic on the situation in the occupied Crimea by Russians, and with the Chersonese, with Bakhchisarai Palace and other our Ukrainian monuments, and also the situation with the oppressing by Russians of Crimean Tatars, depriving of learning Ukrainian language, Crimean Tatar language, having basic education of this language. We raise all time in all the UNESCO events and in all the UNESCO bodies, sessions, committees, and also the question on Chersonese will be also raised during the 47th session of the World Heritage Committee in Bulgaria, and also in the framework of the Second Protocol Committee in December this year as well. So thanks a lot. Maybe I would like to ask Ms. Abdelimova to make the small summary of our today's event, of our today's session, and please, Elmira, to you the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mikola. What I'd like to say, remote monitoring is a high-quality tool for supervising objects that are out of our access. And the quality of this tool is achieved by combining the expertise of various specialists: historian, archaeologists, cultural experts, lawyers, and technical specialists. And there are a lot of non-government and government organizations in Ukraine who can very wide range experience in sphere of monitoring of the state of preservation of cultural heritage object on the temporarily occupied territories and deoccupied territories. And our experience can be integrated into the UNESCO geographic and information system, of course. And I'd like to add some words about today's, because you said, as you mentioned above, February 26th is the day of resistance to occupation of Crimea and city Sevastopol. I'm from Crimea, I'm Crimean Tatar, and it's a tragic date for me. The day I lost my home, I lost my homeland. Ukraine is now looking to the world with hope, with the hope that respect for law, respect for justice will remain the main values in the world. And we want to come back. I want to come back to Crimea to see the sea not on photographs, but with my own eyes, to breathe the air of our land, not to remember what it was like. And we must return home, and we must return all our territories, because Crimea is not just a territory, Crimea is we are. It is our home, and this home must be free. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Elmira. And from our delegation, I would like to add that this event, which we have here today, the online conference on this very important topic concerning the Chersonese and its Chora in temporarily occupied Crimea, and we all would like to come to liberated Crimea and to see the sea and to mountains and the beautiful Ukrainian Crimea. And this event was one of the most important event in the row of organized by us, by our partners, National Commission of Ukraine for UNESCO and a group of friends of Ukraine to commemorate also the third anniversary of the full-scale invasion, full-scale war of Russia against our country. And just to mention that the day before yesterday, we have organized in cooperation with a group of friends of Ukraine in UNESCO and the Lublin Triangle countries and our partner countries in UNESCO, the event Access to Information in Times of War. And actually, this event that we have today is also about access to information about the Russian crimes committed against the cultural sector and against Chersonese and its Torah and its Chora and against other monuments, cultural monuments located in Crimea and occupied by Russia, but also in other parts of our country. That's why we thank you, Ms. Elmira, for cooperation and thank you for your information, because what you have presented today is also access to information, and please provide us with more and more data and detailed information. We'll pass everything to UNESCO. And also, if the countries and delegations would like to have your presentation, I think that we can also send to them those presentations. And I'd like to sum up, I would like to thank Deputy Minister of Culture and Strategic Communications, Mr. Belyaev, for participating in this event today. You, Elmira, and all your team, Mr. Denis Yashny, Ms. Alexandra Zakrevska, Miss Olga Shmilik, and all your team, because you proved one more time very professional preparation and very detailed, and we're very happy that representatives of the member countries of UNESCO and also Secretariat of diverse sectors of Secretariat of UNESCO could hear and could be present here online and to see your presentation. So thank you very much. And you have all our support from our permanent delegation, and we are always at your disposal. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, colleagues.